Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Car King Sports and Variety Show. I'm your host, the Capman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Car King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490am.com, your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line is former pro hockey left wing who achieved NCAA award status and played with the LA Kings, Winnipeg Jets, and others. I welcome to the program Phil Sykes. Phil, Brian C., thanks so much for your time this morning.
Good morning, Brian.
Phil, growing up in Canada, did you follow the NHL as a kid? Who were some of your idols growing up?
So it's following is a perfect term. Growing up in northern British Columbia, we had one TV station, CBC, so I certainly followed the Boston Bruins and Bobby Orr, but really my idols growing up were the senior, Canuck, Dawson Creek Canuck hockey team. I remember with the chicken wire at the end, watching, these older gentlemen, Sam Haddon, Jerry LaFawn, Dave Lepke, these guys playing senior hockey and, the smoky Canadian arenas, and it's riveted in my brain those days.
And Phil, can you give us a little feel of what, the hockey culture is like in Canada, early beginners, leagues, etc.?
Yeah, I don't think you really understand or recognize that until you get older. I know now it's a lot like the religion of the Green Bay Packers or the Yankees. I do remember in middle school them stopping class in 1972 and rolling a TV in so we could watch the seventh game of the 72 Canada-Soviet series. It's pretty amazing. Playing in LA, you go from anonymous to playing in Winnipeg where, they're watching or interviewing your wife buying groceries at the grocery store.
And what age would you say you began to take the sport very seriously and felt that you can do this professionally?
So, again, I didn't have any real serious ambitions. One of the guys I mentioned, Jerry LaFawn, had gone to school at University of North Dakota. Even up till as late as my senior year in college when we were having successes and won the championship, I still couldn't really believe that, I was going to turn pro or become a professional hockey player. It probably wasn't until, the final game I played in Vancouver that I realized I had played hockey. I've been so fortunate.
And it was 1982 where you signed as a free agent by the Kings. But before that, you performed exceptionally well in college, right? Playing for the University of North Dakota and won championship awards in 80 and 82, even winning an NCAA MVP award in 1982. Did you enjoy the college scene? Do you think it gave you enough preparation to play in the NHL?
Yeah, well, I was a walk-on, so again, I didn't have expectations. Incredibly thankful and blessed to have made the team. The University of North Dakota, we had a green Bible. You could go to school, you could have a social life, and you could play hockey, and you could only do two of those well. So I would say that truly University of North Dakota ruined me as a NHL player because absolutely everything we did at college was for the team, and the pro game sponsored you being an individual, how many goals, how many assists you had instead of how many wins the team had. And so I really obviously enjoyed college hockey, and we had successes there. In pro, I wasn't as fortunate, but I absolutely love the people I met in the locker room.
Now, I'm not sure if this is a fact, but from what I read, I heard that the NHL around 1982, they didn't take the university hockey that serious. You know, it was being dismissed as a true resource for development. Is that accurate to say?
Sure. Actually, what really changed everything, the landscape, was 1980 and the Miracle Hockey Team. And the value of college is you didn't have to pay large developmental fees like they were to the Canadian junior teams. And even better than that, kids got an opportunity to mature, and late bloomers, could age. I remember when I first started playing pro, these Canadian kids that were playing junior hockey in Canada, their agents did everything for them, and us coming out of college, we'd already, figured out how to get our own, telephone or what have you. So, we're a lot more mature heading into the game, and it became, and still is today, a big breeding ground for NHL players.
And also, reading about your history, Phil, you were never drafted by the NHL. Instead, you were more shopping your services. You were more of an independent contractor. Is that correct?
Yeah, so because I wasn't drafted, as a matter of fact, a couple of years later, they created this supplemental draft. I think it was Adam Oates. There's a couple of big-name players that had also slipped through the cracks, and so they wanted to capture these people, so they created that. But, yeah, I was a free agent, so I negotiated with, I think, 19 of the 21 teams at that point, or my agent did.
We're talking to Phil Sykes, left wing of the LA Kings, former NHL player. Phil, your recollection of the very first pro game you played in, how emotional was that for you? Do you remember how you performed in that game?
Yeah, I don't really remember how I performed. I certainly remember, the nerves. I remember it was Vancouver in exhibition, and was lined up for a face-off in our end, and my job was to get out to my point man and skated right through Stan Smeel, the steamer, and, he's looking at me like, kid, what are you doing here? And, I got dry throat. I can't even barely answer him. And I said, I'm just trying to make the team, sir. And he gave me a pat and told me to put my nose to the grindstone.
So I have to ask you, who was the hardest player to defend?
Well, the hardest player to defend was the entire Edmonton Oilers hockey team, but as an individual, there's probably, he's unstoppable. Mario Lemieux was by himself the most difficult player I played against. You couldn't stop him.
And I have to read you this quote. Coach Murdoch, he was once quoted saying about you that you read things well and is able to adapt to every situation. His forte is defensive play, where Phil is very smart at. How is playing for Coach Murdoch, and what other attributes does it take, in your opinion, to be that killer player?
For me, I was 150 pounds soaking wet. I was 6 feet tall, so it wasn't that I was a short and small. I was tall and skinny, and so I had to play with reckless abandon. I had to play like there was no tomorrow. It's the true great players, superstars. These athletes are, the game slows down for them. They see everything in slow motion, and what maybe most important, they love the game. You could probably pay them nothing. Their first one's on the ice and the last one's off. So those are, I can imagine that from college, my senior year in college, but playing in the NHL, there's some pretty incredible athletes out there.
And Phil, do you still watch the games, follow the sport?
I didn't for a long time. I was I had 5 children, and they were playing sports. They were playing hockey. I was coaching them. And really the game just kind of got flooded with teams, and it wasn't like growing up when you recognized every player. You collected their SO stickers and put them in your book, what have it. But it's back for me. I'm watching it more. It's something I can do with my father as he gets older, and it's certainly not the same game. You have to watch carefully to recognize who the true superstars are. For the most part, everybody is equally so well skilled and coached and have great abilities, and so the game's a lot more consistent. But it's good once you adjust. I'm enjoying it, and it's part of Canada, that's for sure.
And we're talking to Phil Sykes, former NHL left-wing player. Phil, as we fans know, hockey is such an aggressive contact sport, and you definitely had your shares of battle on the ice. And, what I want to do is I want to air a few of those game battles you had in your career. We have a quick mix of 3 games, I believe. We're going to go ahead and play them now, and then we can discuss.
Rolly Melanson, and now Phil Sykes in a scrap to the left of the King net. Gretzky was upset just moments ago when he got bumped by Laidlaw, and now Sykes and Gretzky are involved in this little shoving match.
Yeah, one of the Kings has his right arm draped around Wayne Gretzky's neck. Phil Sykes, I believe it is.
Behind the net. And now Phil Sykes and Bure. And in comes the Canucks. Now, how are they going to call this one? Now, if they don't give a third man in on this one, as Sykes and Bure went at it, and the Canucks realized that Bure only weighs about 175 pounds, but so does Phil Sykes. And Jyrki Lumme came charging in. That was a pretty bantamweight bout, Sykes and Bure.
Just over 8 minutes remaining in this third period. Bassen took the feet out from under Melanson as he went through the goal mouth. And the fight breaks out at center ice. Phil Sykes and Bob Bassen. Oh, Bassen with a couple of rights. Uppercut fashion.
Yeah, that was Phil Sykes. Phil, we just aired 3 games. Sykes versus Gretzky, 87 playoff series, and then it was Sykes versus Bassen and Sykes versus Bure. What comes to mind hearing those 3 games, those 3 confrontations you had?
It was just part of being involved in the league. Often my job was to check as a defensive player of that role the other team's score or superstars, and so conflict with them, kind of came and went, and typically they were protected by, like Gretz's case, it would be Semenko and what have you. I remember all of those moments like it was yesterday. I remember Dave Semenko tapping me on the shoulder and going, "You probably shouldn't hit him." I was like, "You're probably right, Dave. I won't." Got to be good friends with him later, so it was fun. With Bassen, the Washington GM, Brian McClellan and Mark Hardy, told me it looked like a Snoopy fight where there's all the dust and everything flying up and down, and every punch was hitting each other right in the button, and the 2 of us come out without a scratch on our face and went out for a beer afterwards. So it was just a different game back then. It's not at all the way it is now. It's there was a big difference between your first and fourth line. Nowadays, it's a pretty equal battle out there.
I tell you, the Bassen fight must go down in hockey history as one of the all-time, one of the all-time greatest fights in hockey history. That was such a battle. I mean, you guys were throwing punches. and like the announcer said, you were 175 at the time.
Yeah, I was 150, so maybe I lied for the program, but I never made it. I started the game at 152 and ended at 142 probably.
Yeah, I mean, you were tough out there, that's for sure. Witnessing the game today, Phil, how else do you think the sport has changed from when you played? Is it for the better, for the worse? Definitely the financial aspect has changed. Anything else?
I think in general, like you said, the quality of the game is, not only dramatically higher, but all four lines can play the game, and there's four more chomping at the bit in the minors to get up there. So it's gone from a Canadian influence to a total world game. Tons of first rounders out of other countries, out of southern parts of the states. It's become a global game, and it's different. I wouldn't trade the locker room or the 10 years I had for anything nowadays, but these guys are machines on diets and, strength training. They have all these different coaches. It was just a game without cell phones and a lot of fun, practical jokes. The best part of the game was the locker room back when I played.
So, if you can rewind your sports career, anything differently you would do or change?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you can do that. It's, I wish I had I've always said that University of North Dakota ruined me as a professional hockey player because we won championships as a team. Nobody was more important than our team. So, it would have been fun to be a little less intimidated by playing at the level of NHL and enjoyed it a bit more. But other than that, I don't think I would change anything.
And you mentioned, you played a decade in the sport. Do you miss being out there competing in front of the public?
No, not really. I enjoyed that. I love giving back and coaching, and my kids are growing up now, but coaching them through all their minor hockey days. I literally, there was expansion happening in the NHL, and I didn't even know where these teams were located because I was too busy with 4 of my own children and 1 adopted from Russia that were all playing hockey or playing sports. So, not really.
And I did read an article, Phil, you mentioned coaching. You did get into coaching a few years back, right?
Yeah, I've basically coached at some level since I retired. I think the last couple of years helping my father through some of his health issues, I haven't been doing anything, but for the most part, I've been coaching, since '92 when I retired from the game.
And, being myself in the sports card business, I know that you have always been generous with your autographs. Do you still receive fan mail? Do you still enjoy signing, cards for fans through the mail?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm always surprised by that. I still get, 1 or 2 requests a week for a month or something, and I always joke that the value of my hockey card has gone up to 3 cents, but yeah, there's usually a well, thought of note in there, and it allows me to remember and to reminisce about days gone by. That's for sure.
Did you collect sports cards as a kid, by the way?
No, there was an Esso. Which is kind of like Exxon in the U.S. An Esso deal. They were a sponsor of the NHL, and you had a book, and you collected these stamps or cards that you pasted in your book. I did a little bit of that, but, I'm at Mile Zero, the Alaska Highway, one TV station, CBC Canada. So it was more about the outdoor rink across from the house than that was more left, it seemed to me, as I grew up, for the big city kids, in Vancouver, Edmonton, and such.
And any future plans, Phil? Future plans, goals, maybe a book is on the way on your career, on the games you played? Any future plans?
Well, one of my sons is threatening that he wants to write a book of all of the practical jokes. We could do another show on that. I'm telling you, there were some of the best pranks, whether it's airports or hotels or locker room, for 10 years of my life. I really, the only goal I have left to accomplish would be to become a grandpa, and I got to get my 5 children working on that, because none of them seem to be getting to the finish line.
And I wanted to ask you, how's your dad? Is your dad okay?
Yeah, he's doing okay. I mean, whatever dementia, whatever the Parkinson's, the thing that scares me is am I looking into the future? And so you work hard to keep as healthy as possible. It's obviously been, we probably will have never dealt with a more difficult year than this past year. So it's hard when you're locked up, and it's even more difficult for him because he doesn't really completely understand what's going on. So it's been a challenge, that's for sure.
I know it's very difficult. You send them our best here. Final question. Here's your statistics for your career. You collected 456 games. He collected 456 games played, 79 goals, 85 assists, 164 points, 3 assists in 26 playoff games. And you were nicknamed Psycho. Did that, right? That was your nickname, Psycho.
Right. It's funny, get on the bus.
Now, the nickname came from your last name, right? Sykes.
Probably. You get on the bus, I remember it was Glenn Golduff, and, it's like tradition or something. You're in the minors, they used to joke that the runway there was 18 hours long. And, you're walking by the veterans and you get your name, and it didn't have anything to do with my play or anything, just totally a pun on my last name.
Well, listen, I wish you the best. I really thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, same to you, Brian. Thank you very much, and I hope everybody stays safe.
And when you write that book, come on, we'll promote it here.
Okay, deal.
Thanks so much, Phil.
Have a great day.
You too. That was former NHL player, left wing Phil Sykes. He was nicknamed Psycho or Sykes.